It is Friday.
Do you have any good plans for the weekend?
Stillness.
That's
Ooh,
good.
that
This
sounds
will be a really good way to start it out then. Nice, quiet, calm place. Hey, Brenda, how are you?
Good.
I'd like to think that you're really at that place with the trees and the.
Too. I'm pretty sure that one was Bora Bora, but
Bora Bora would be nice.
yes.
Brenda and I have been friends for years, and she and her husband lived on their boat for 5 years and traveled halfway around the world. And so that is not a stock photo behind her.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
Isn't that amazing?
That's my own photo. And yeah, it was fun.
I
And
bet
Melissa came to see us on the boat in 2 different locations. So
Yeah.
Nice. Super nice. And Kim, hello, Kim.
Hi, everyone. I'll be able to join on video in just a couple minutes here.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I'm excited to join.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
We're talking about weekend plans. Tamara's having a nice restful weekend, like me. I am too. And what about you, Brenda?
oh, let's see. I'm gonna run around a little bit with some deliveries from our chamber group to the new residents in Lafayette. That's just a couple hours. And then I meet with a group of gals I've been meeting with for, I think I calculated the other day, for like 15 years. On Sunday morning, we'll get together. We get together once a month for about 2 hours and we catch up and have little different topics and whatnot. So.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. We're really excited about this, but we do kind of want to stay on track. I usually take a few extra minutes to kind of let people join and settle in, but Laura and I have some awesome stuff to talk about. So we're going to get started right now. And we're going to get started by Laura's kind of going to tell us what the order of events is going to be and what we can expect and what we're all here for, what we're going to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. What I want us to do is relax first and foremost, because finances really get people stressed out and transitions really get people stressed out. So first and foremost, this is a place to relax, to connect. There are no dumb questions. There are no silly questions. This is an absolute safe space. So whatever is going on with you, just feel free to talk about it. Melissa is going to be teaching you this like intellectual, money, logical stuff. And that's going to put you in kind of that head space. So before we get into that kind of head space and we start learning, I'm going to do some of the emotional connection piece with you guys. Okay, give me a thumbs up or wave if you have ever heard the phrase fight, flight, or freeze. Yes. Okay. As organisms, we all overload pretty quickly. And it's really a good thing because it keeps us safe. So if a saber-toothed tiger is chasing after us, we will either run, we will fight, or we will freeze and try to, make it so he's not going to pounce and kill us. That's good. The problem is when you're in a transition and when you're dealing with the unknown, like how is this going to look if I lose my business? How is this going to look if I leave my spouse? How is this going to look if I go part-time? It puts our brain into that fight, flight, or freeze place, and we can't process. Now, how that looks for you, how you might know if you're in a fight, flight, or freeze place. You want to cry. You want to quit. You are in that decision fatigue place where you're just like, I don't know, figure it out. I don't know, I don't care, whatever. You start drinking a little more often than you'd like to, just, a glass of wine at dinner and then a glass of wine on the couch and then maybe a second glass of wine on the couch, which sure gets you out of your head, but it numbs you and then you still can't process and you still can't make things better. Or just kind of slipping into this place of, it's all going to be fine. It'll work out fine. It's fine. And denying the whole thing. So if any of those sound familiar, you're not alone. But the bottom line to all of that is when you are in fight, flight, or freeze, you are not in the conscious portion of your brain, and you're not learning, and you're not making good decisions. And that's what this workshop is about. It's providing you both the tools to get you out of fight, flight, or freeze, and the education so you can make good financial decisions around transition. To start, I would like you to all take a moment of stillness for yourself. If you want to close your eyes, please do. If you would like to just look down at your hands, that works too. Breathe deep. And gently roll your eyes with your eyes closed or at least cast down in a circle one way, all the way around, and the other way, all the way around. When you're moving your eyes like this, you are accessing, relaxing, and connecting different parts of your brain. Take a breath and breathe into the inside of your body, that centermost point. It might be in the womb area, it might be in the solar plexus area, whatever feels like that center place for you, breathe right in there. With your next breath, breathe right into the skin. Breathe into that organ, that skin that is encasing and holding you together and is making you one body. And then lastly, breathe into the energy around your body, maybe an inch to 5 inches off of your body, and feel that space around your body.
Nobody. No.
And then connect from the inside to all that space around you and smile. And without opening your eyes, cross your feet at your ankles and cross your arms at your chest. Crossing the midline, crossing the body. One more deep breath and keeping that cross, squeezing into that cross, slowly open your eyes. And then you can uncross, shake it out, and now you are ready to learn. So Melissa, take away that learning.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was a wonderful way to start out. And as much as it's important to appreciate our inner stillness and our inner being, we are all interconnected and we do interact with our world. And so I love bringing both of those sides into that breathing exercise. That was great. I'd just like to take a couple of minutes to let each person introduce themselves. It's going to be so much easier for us to chat and talk if we know a little bit about ourselves, about each other. So if you can all say what your name is and what transitions are you going through right now. If you don't want to share that information, maybe share what's your default mode, fight, flight, or freeze, when you really are in over your head. So please share a little bit about yourself. And I'll start out. I am Melissa Timmerman. I am a financial rep with 5 Rings Financial, and I help people with financial education. You can't make good decisions unless you know what you're getting into. It's important in really all aspects of life. My transition right now is my husband is starting a new job, and the man does not handle change very well at all. So as much as it's a transition for him, it is also a transition for us, for sure. And my main mode is I'm a fight. If something happens, and this doesn't mean getting angry, this just means if something falls off the counter, I'm the one with the reflexes like a cat. And just because I react quickly doesn't always mean it's the right decision in the moment. And it also doesn't mean I'm processing anything. So Who would like to go next? I'll go in order of us arriving in the room. Tamara, would you like to share?
Sure, folks. I'm Tamara. As you can see, I use they, aya, and she pronouns kind of in that order of preference, but they're all fine. They're all accurate. I work for the university, and I am in a number of transitions. I've been offered a new position in the university that will take me from student facing to not student facing, but the actual accomplishment of that in terms of bureaucracy and offer letters has stretched into now the 6-month region. So it's a very destabilizing place to have one foot in one team and one foot in another team, and that's one of the transitions. I also have a consulting arm that I've named Black Women Reading Aloud, and I've taken some consulting work this year in a new way. We're 2 years old. We haven't turned a profit yet, and we just started like actually making any money. So that's a transition to being like fully in that entrepreneurial space in a good way. So those are 2 of the transitions that I'm involved in right now.
That's a lot. I think the information you'll find here will just help you make really good decisions moving forward, very considered.
Yes,
Brenda.
and finally, real quick, my primary mode is fight for other people, never for myself. If it's for myself, it is not even flight. It's just kind of the slow blink and a complete disassociation. And it's not even, it is spiritual disassociation. If you're not my people, like I'm gone. I may be in the room, but nobody's home.
Yeah, overwhelm makes us react in ways we would never expect of ourselves. So, Brenda?
Hello, everyone. I'm Brenda Langell, and the transitions I'm going through, I own my first business. That was a big transition to start with. As Melissa knows, I've moved 6 times in the last 10 years, and I'm crazy enough to be about ready to move again because I have this thing that I want a puppy now, and I want a yard to have a puppy. So therefore, we got to figure out some finance stuff to figure out what we can do to get a house with a yard. So that's one of the transitions that may or may not be happening in the next 6 months to a year. The other is in my business. I've just transitioned out of being the franchise partner manager to now being the franchise partner and having a manager over the business. So that is definite transition. And my husband's starting another business, and I may start working for him, or I may go back into my old field of pharmacy. So a number of transitions going on. And my usual way of between the fight, flight, or freeze is I am a definite freeze.
Cool.
Do nothing.
Yeah, you know, this is a great workshop, and we're so happy to offer it. And everyone, not everyone, but there are so many different transitions we can go through, and not in order. Sometimes they're all at once. Gina, would you like to share?
Sure. Good Friday afternoon, everybody. So my transition really began February 28th of 2017 when I left an abusive marriage and literally got thrown out of my house and went to the courthouse the very next day and filed for divorce. No income, no way of knowing how I was going to recover, but it's been a journey, and I can't believe it's 4 years. And I literally just penned the last words. I'll probably have some edits, but of my book that I wrote, I Am Not a Supermom. And it really chronicles all the really, and I'm a fighter, but the fight that I put up for the last 4 years and even before that with my 3 kids. But I made some really bad decisions in that state where I describe it as your executive function goes bye-bye. And I prided myself in the fact that I could function on 4 hours of sleep. And now that I'm actually sleeping again, I have new love in my life, and he is like a priority for him to make sure that I sleep. And today I didn't have a single appointment. I had nothing on my schedule, and I made it me day. And I just like did an hour of meditation with Panache Desai. I sat in the sun and took a nap, and I feel so big. And I'm getting ready to move, and it's like, oh, I could, but I'm at the house, I'm moving too. And so therefore that busy bee didn't kick in like, oh, I could pack a box, I could do this. But my house sold in 3 days, and we'll be moving, me and my 3 kids in with my divine lover is what I call him. He's not a boyfriend. It's just a lot of, and I find myself like saying, oh my God, I'm letting my business slip. I don't have enough clients. Today, me just said, this is what you need, Gina. You are like coming down off of 4 years of constant fight, flight. I mean, it's horrible to live in that state. And I'm a yoga teacher and fitness professional of 25 years, and I know how to take care of myself. But, even having all the tools that I have, I'm still like trying to find, like my compass is trying to find where north is. So I really wanting to make good financial decisions now that I'm going to have a lot of money coming to me, and I want to put it in the right places. That's my goal, and to stop fighting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's the story of the resilience of the human spirit. We can recover from anything, even when we're in survival mode. And that's awesome. And congratulations on your new relationship. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Kim, would you like to share next?
Sure. And so sorry, I have a puppy and dogs are everywhere. It's a little crazy today. So I apologize if they were noisy earlier. So my name's Kim West. I'm the founder of a company called Navigating the Knot. And I primarily work as a divorce consultant, a certified coach, as well as a certified divorce specialist. So I help clients nationwide, whether they're approaching, going through, or looking to recover from divorce. So that was partially my interest in this workshop. However, I'm also going through a very big transition myself, and that is I'm pregnant with my first child. So first time pregnancy, and just learning a lot and doing all the adulting I can this year in terms of getting life insurance and all of those big things in place to support the kiddo coming in July. So that's really what brought me here. And in terms of what my primary mode would be, I'm not sure. I think in some situations my response would be fight. And in some situations, my response would be freeze. I just know it's not flight typically.
Yeah, different situations can put us in different modes as well. So thank you, Kim, and congratulations on your happy news.
Thank you so much.
And Maria, would you like to introduce yourself? We're talking about what transitions we're going through right now, as well as is your standard operating mode fight, flight, or freeze when you're in a place of overwhelm?
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Wilson. I work with Pandora John Properties, and for me, this is my first year as a realtor, so that's a transition for me. I've worked for somebody else my whole life, and now I'm working for myself, so that has been a transition and learning all about business. Fight, flight, say it again.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Well, I'm a fighter. I'm a warrior.
When the pot is boiling over on the stove, what do you do? Do you grab a towel? Do you just stare at it for a sec, or do you think, oh, I need to get away?
No, I don't ever get away. I for a minute I do stop and I process the situation at hand, and then I calculate my next move.
Technically, I don't think it matters too much, but the idea is that when we are in overwhelm mode, we can't process things well. And we don't always, the first decision we make isn't always the best decision. And transitions bring that up for us. So thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourself. Kind of knowing where everyone is coming from makes things a lot more fun and a lot easier. And this is a discussion. This is not us, pontificating from on high. So if anyone has anything they would like to ask or share or interject, please feel free to unmute yourself at any time, or put any questions, etc., into the chat. And you can private message someone as well if you want to send a message or ask a question. So we're going to get started with kind of the portion of education that we're starting with. And so, Laura, would you like to introduce yourself? I'd love to hear more about what you're offering today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am Lora Cheadle. I am a former corporate attorney turned author and life choreographer. And the transition that I'm navigating right now is my kids are 21 and 23. So I'm an empty nester because they moved away to college. But my 23-year-old with COVID and all that doesn't have a job right now. So he's moving back home next week. And it's just a whole lot of which kid's going where and how. And then as parents, what is our financial responsibility towards him and grad school? And with COVID, it's hard to get a job. So there's just a lot of balls that I'm juggling right here. In my primary mode, it's interesting because as a lawyer, that was very left brain, linear, logical, and absolutely fight. If there's a problem, I'm on it. I can do it. I've got it. But then I'm also very spiritual, and I teach yoga and I do all of that. And when I'm in that space and a problem happens, I'm kind of in the freeze mode. So I have a different response kind of in different areas of my life.
Yeah, our modes can change. Our modes can change based on what situation we're in or what stage of life we're in. And so things always change.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think next up on what we're doing, and welcome to Vera. It looks like she's having trouble getting on, but welcome to Vera and our guest who is phoning in. Laura, would you like to start off by actually, we're going to start off with, now I know where I am. You are a life choreographer, but what exactly does that mean? How does it help someone who is dealing with transitions? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. A life choreographer is somebody who helps others put together all of the pieces. If you've ever watched any kind of a dance performance, you've got costuming, you've got staging, you've got lighting, you've got, the size of the stage, you've got music, you've got the skill of all the different dancers, you've got the interplay, you've got all of these different factors to contend with. And one of the mistakes that people make in a transition period of their life is they think, I will learn this one thing and it'll help and it'll fix it. I'll get, a divorce and it'll be fine. I'll get a new job and it'll be fine. I will invest in this stock and it'll be fine. But they fail to take into consideration all of the different aspects of their life and where they're actually at. A divorce might be the right answer. Sometimes you need it right now. Like Jeannie, you were saying, you go to the courthouse the next day and you file. Sometimes, yes, you need it right now. Sometimes you need to take some time and you need to get your finances in order, and you need to, if it's amicable, discuss and figure some things out. Every person's situation is vastly different. And that's what I do, is help people take stock of what is really going on in your life. What are all of the things that you need to look at, including your health, your sanity? How are you stretched thin? How much capacity do you have right now? If you're on chemo and trying to deal with something else, you need to balance it around. And it's really helpful to have somebody in your corner who's got your back, who can help put all the pieces together, especially when you are overwhelmed and you're saying, I don't know, or you're just running around putting out fires left and right. One of my favorite sayings is that life doesn't always go as planned, because that is so true. And when things don't go as planned, as women, we tend to internalize and think, oh, it's because I'm stupid. Oh, it's because I'm bad. It's because I'm not good enough. And then when we're already stressed out and we're already trying to deal with it, then we have that voice inside and we're beating ourselves up. And it just makes it worse. If I wasn't so ugly, if I wasn't so fat, if I wasn't so stupid, I mean, it gets ridiculous. And I'm sure you can relate because we all do that. You're not a failure if you're in transition. You're not a failure if you're in fight, flight, or freeze. You're just anxious and stressed and confused. And that's what I do as a life choreographer, is give you tools like this, crossing the midline, crossing the ankles, rolling the eyes in circles, tools to get you out of fight, flight, or freeze, and then help you choreograph that next phase of your life so it can take everything into consideration.
Excellent. Awesome, Laura. Thank you. So I totally understand why it's important to stay out of fight, flight, or freeze mode. But how do you do that when life is really falling apart around you?
Yeah, such a good question. There is so much to be said for just self-awareness. Just knowing that fight, flight, or freeze is a thing. Somebody talked about, the executive function going bye-bye. That was Gina. Yes, just knowing that sometimes helps. Just having the awareness that it's a natural state, that we all go into it. And when I'm feeling this way, I might be in fight, flight, or freeze. Knowing it helps. Like I said, hooking up, meditation, hooking up this way, not hooking up with somebody else. Doing a cross-body hookup, meditation, breathing, having someone to call. We all have friends. There's all these different apps. No, we can't talk to people, but sometimes just having somebody that you can just call or send a text to and say, I'm going crazy, help. Just giving yourself that break, having those skills. That's what sometimes it takes, is just a small awareness and a breath.
Awesome, Laura. Thank you.
And what I want to say, I want to lead into some of with Melissa's questions. Finances are really scary. Transitions are really scary. And I was talking about that awareness. It's okay, and it's imperative to admit, I don't know anything about this, because that takes it from the scary thing that's outside of you and it makes it accessible. So even if you just have a mindset shift that says, wow, finances are scary, transitions are scary, it's easy to do things wrong, or it's easy to worry that I'm going to do things wrong. Just again, acknowledging that and having that awareness makes the transition easier to handle. So Melissa, what are some of the things for us to think about when we're in a transition so we can be prepared for those changes?
The first thing you always need to do is recognize when you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and then use some of those strategies to get yourself out of it, like Laura said. So you can't process anything when you are in overwhelm. Now, once you are out of overwhelm, and you can kind of use some of the same strategies, which is teamwork. None of you is alone. You have people around you who are rooting for you, who want to see you succeed. Lean on those people. It is so hard to ask for help, right? It's so much easier. I could ask this other person for help, but I'm gonna do it faster. I'm probably gonna do it better, and I'll probably be less quiet and less messy about it to boot. It's so easy to want to do everything ourselves. But when you really need help, how do you feel when someone asks you for help? You feel good. You think, I am capable. I can help. This person knows I can help. All sorts of things happen that are really good when you ask someone else for help. They will fall all over each other to help you. I had this brainstorm a few years ago that people truly want to help and all we have to do is ask. And I tried putting that into practice a couple of times, and there's two things that really stick out in my mind. One, I was at a party. It was a Saturday night. I don't remember what we were celebrating. The new moon, who knows? Doesn't matter. But we were out, we were having fun, and I wanted to put into practice this idea that people will drop everything in order to help you. So I grabbed a bottle of beer and I walked up to a group of guys, and they were mid-conversation about something I had no idea what they were talking about. And I said, hey, does anyone have a bottle opener? Can anyone help me open this? All three of them stopped what they were doing, turned around to look for whatever tool they had that could help. They completely dropped their conversation in that very moment. Second story was I was at a concert, and I walked into the ladies' room, and there was a girl who was just staring in the mirror with this panicked look on her face. And I said, honey, is everything okay? And she said, my dress broke. The zipper broke. I can't get out of the bathroom like this. And I turned around, and there were 6 or 7 stalls, and I turned around and I said, does anyone have a safety pin? There were probably 12 or 15 women in the bathroom. All of them opened their purses, dropped what they were doing, stuck things under the doors of the stalls. Asking for help yields amazing results. So none of us are alone. Ask for help and find people you trust. Even when we're talking about finances, you are not alone, and there is more than one person on your team. Think about everyone who's on your financial team. Your banker handles your checking, savings, maybe your credit cards. Every credit card you have, the customer service department of that credit card, they're on your financial team. They help you solve problems. Your realtor, they help you make decisions. Your mortgage broker, they're really important to your finances if you're a homeowner or wanting to be one. Your financial advisor is usually your stockbroker. And that person is who we usually think of when we think of our money person, but our financial team is much larger than that. The person who handles your auto, home, life, renter's insurance, they're on your financial team. So you have an enormous number of people on your financial team who you can reach out to for help. So ask for help, realize your financial team is bigger than you think. And once you're out of overwhelm mode, the really top thing you want to do is seek to educate yourself. The more you know, the more confident you are that you're making a good decision. Now we have 2 scenarios here. One, you are starting up a business, you are ending a relationship, you are, what are some of the transitions we're going through? We're deciding what job we want. Now we have a choice where we can sit at home and we can curl up on the couch and we can just think, oh, I've got this choice ahead of me. Oh, I've got this choice ahead of me. And we use only the information we have at the moment to make that decision. Our second choice is we can call a friend. Hey, I'm thinking about this job change. Here's the pros and cons. And your friend will say, well, really all you're talking about is the cons of this one job. It doesn't sound like it's a good fit for you. Just getting a reflection from someone else makes an enormous difference. The second thing we can do is we can educate ourselves about our options. Is it a good option for me to sell my home right now? Or should I just stay and get through this divorce and see what things look like on the other side? Your realtor and your mortgage broker and your financial advisor are going to help you with those decisions. Another person on your financial team that I forgot to mention is your tax advisor. This could be an accountant, an actual CPA, or it could just be a tax preparer or a lawyer. Maybe you have a small business lawyer who's on your financial team and helps you make those decisions. If you need to make a big decision, the more information you have, if you are not in overwhelm mode, the more information you have, the more likely it is that you will make a better long-term decision. Now, sometimes we're in survival mode and we just have short-term instincts. We need to get out of something short-term. And that is fine. And all of us have been there. Who here hasn't been there? I don't think anyone can raise their hand at that. We've all been there and we have all survived. So if you absolutely cannot make the best long-term decision, give yourself some grace. Transitions are hard and they are scary. So ask for help, realize more people are on your team than you think, educate yourself, look at your options, and give yourself some grace. So those are the things that we can really focus on when we're dealing with transition. And sometimes that may seem broad advice, but it's not. If you take each of those steps and apply it to your situation, what occurs? You're not in overwhelm mode right now because of Laura's exercises. You're not in overwhelm mode, so where you think, who's on my team? Who can I call? Right now, each of you think of the main transition in your life right now and think about who is on my team? Who can I ask for help? Does anyone want to share who that is in their life? Can it, raise your hand if you can think of someone you can call and ask for help. Yeah, for the main transition in your life, can you think of someone who's on your team? Yeah, we can all of that occurs.
And when you ask yourself a question, it gets you out of fight, flight, or freeze, and it gets you into problem-solving mode. When we ruminate and stew, this is awful, I'm never going to figure it out. This is just, oh, that's terrible. We're affirming for ourselves that it's awful, this is terrible, I'm never going to get out of it. When you ask a question, it opens a loop in the brain, and the brain wants to close loops. How can I do this? Close the loop. How can I do it? Close the loop.
And a more specific piece of advice about who do we ask for help and how we ask for help. Figure out the awareness of what it is that you need. So here's the best piece of advice I can give you. If you need support, ask for support from people who are in the same place as you, because they understand what you're going through. If you are aware that I don't need support, I need advice, then always ask for advice from people who are in a better place than you. Ask for support from people who are in the same place as you. Ask for advice from people who have been there, done that, gone through it, and gotten over it. Yes, education, wonderful way. Yeah. Wonderful way to deal with those transitions.
Absolutely. Now, I've got a question for you too, Melissa, because I think there's people out there like me who think tax is super boring. Money is super boring. You know, oh, putting it into QuickBooks is super boring. Can you tell us more about things like the tax piece, all of the things that we have to do where we might have this idea that it's really boring and it's problematic and I just hate it?
Yes. When we are dealing with transition, there are two factors at play: what is important and what is urgent. And often the urgent things are what take our attention, but the important things also need attention. If something is both important and urgent, you're going to deal with it first. But transitions are also about laying the framework and laying the foundation for a better future. I know I'm in a really crappy place right now. As many of us in this room have been, I have been divorced, and divorce makes you poor, right? If you pay attention to some of those details while you're going through it, it makes those transitions a lot better. And I'm glad you brought up the tax piece, Laura, because a lot of people think taxes are boring. Mm-hmm. Who thinks taxes are boring? Everyone thinks taxes are boring. Who gets downright anxiety when you deal with taxes? A lot of people do that too. You know what's really exciting about it though? When you understand how to maximize your finances, you're like, oh my gosh, you mean I can do this instead of that? You mean I can put thousands more in my pocket? And just because I knew this one little trick or I asked advice of the right person, laying that foundation and understanding how, for example, how to maximize your tax savings in a business, putting thousands back in your pocket means that you can use those thousands of dollars to lay the foundation for the future, the retirement, and the life that you want. So no, taxes aren't exciting, but you know what is exciting? Having the future and the retirement and the lifestyle that you want. So putting a little bit of attention to that in the beginning, again, using your network of trusted advisors. That could be a partner, that could be a parent, and that could be a professional. So don't discount anyone who might be on your team for you. So yes, even some of those things that seem boring, when you understand why you're doing it and when you understand what you're going to get out of it, all of a sudden, things change and it gets real exciting real quick. And so that's what I help you do. I help you focus on what is important to you, and that is what motivates you to take the actions you know you need to take. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got some of the big pieces, tax, planning, asking people who are ahead of you, realizing that your financial team is bigger than just, your stockbroker or something like that. What else in terms of like safety nets and things like that? What else do we need to be planning? Do we need to know? Not even now, but looking ahead for future transitions.
When we are in transition, we feel uncertain and we feel unsafe. And so you've got that, you've shared with us that mind, body, spirit piece on how important it is to get out of overwhelm mode. And of course, when we go through a transition, we almost always think about our emotional safety net. Who is there for me? Who can I get support from? And hopefully it's not too big of a jump to make to see, okay, who's the rest of my team? Who else can I ask for advice, not just support? And so when we think about safety nets, we usually think about the emotional side of it, but think about what happens in transition. Our safety net gets smaller. If you start a business, you're usually taking your resources, your time, your money, your savings. Sometimes you're asking for some sacrifice from your family. You're taking your resources and making your safety net smaller so that you can start on this big, beautiful new dream. When you're starting or ending a relationship, your safety net, Kim, you're looking forward to a new baby. Your safety net had to be big enough for 2 people. Now your safety net has to be big enough for 3 people. That's a transition, and we actually need a real, true, solid safety net for that. And divorce. Again, divorce makes you poor. You went from having this many resources to having half as many resources because you're splitting it. Or in the case of a nasty divorce, well under half the resources from that marriage. That was my situation, sadly. And so your safety net decreases during transition, your cash flow decreases, your time, your effort, your all of that. You're also leaning on your emotional safety net. So if you're leaning on your family for emotional support, you may not feel like you can lean on them for the practical support you need. And so looking for a safety net is really important. The company I work for really focuses on that. Asset protection is really important when you go through transition. You don't, let me rephrase. Over 50% of small businesses fail, over 50% fail due to accident, injury, or illness on the part of the owner. Even if you have other employees, if you suffer an injury and you can't work for a year, chances are you're going to lose your business. Do you really want to do that? No. Do you have to do that? Oh, it's the only thing. I don't have a safety net. I can't get a safety net. None of those things are true. And so look into some financial education, look into those resources and expand your safety net. And when you have a safety net, you have peace of mind. And minimizing the stress on yourself during transition it is super critical. Having peace of mind is the difference between sleep and insomnia. It's the difference between your physical health and getting lots of colds or flus. It's the difference between busy days and chaotic days. So the third thing another thing we can do as we help ourselves through transition is shore up that safety net. Really identify what we have. And when you're feeling that stress, I don't have a safety net, you actually do. There are options out there for you. 5 Rings Financial, it's one thing we specialize in, is creating that safety net. It's far more affordable than people think. And so if you are worried, if you don't have peace of mind because you don't have a safety net or the resources you need, then there are strategies and plans out there that can absolutely shore that up for you. As you can see, it's something I really care about.
And I would like to, before we move into some of this last movement activity that I've got planned for us, I would actually like to open it up to questions now, because I feel like there might be some things that you're thinking about. You're like, oh, safety net, oh, resources, oh. So, instead of distracting with going into the movement, if you guys have any questions of Melissa, some of the specifics, like what do you mean by safety net or how could that work? General, specific, whatever. Let's go ahead and move into that now before you forget.
Anything specific anyone is curious about?
Well, I'm selling my house, right? And I'm not buying a new home, moving in with my divine lover. And I said that to somebody yesterday and she was like, oh my God, you're not reinvesting in the market? And I was like, no, am I doing something wrong? Like it made me start to question myself. And I was like, I'm getting ready to launch a book and I think I'm going to take a big chunk and make sure that this gets into at least 1 million moms' hands. That's my goal. So I feel like, when you're in transition, it's really lots of people give you advice and it's also you're uncertain, you said, Melissa. And so one thing I have to be careful of, because I went back and looked at my last 3 years of how much I spent on coaches. And I just need to stop listening to other people and listen to myself. And I mean, it's like ridiculous the amount of money that I didn't have that I spent on coaching, that it didn't yield anything because I was in constant fight or flight. And you can't build a business and you can't attract clients when you're like, oh, how am I going to, I've just had extreme stress other than financial in my life. So that's kind of where I am right now. And I really want to just like, maybe it's you, Melissa, or like landing on one professional who can say this is one thing. I'm like, okay, I don't want to get taxed like hell on all this money. And how can I like hide it away, have my safety net, have some college money for my kids stowed away, and more importantly, retirement money for me, and do it the right way.
So first of all, I am not sure about other people in the room, but I really think about their experience with real estate in this current market. But I think you're probably making the right decision. Choosing to keep your home or sell it and buy a new one or what have you, those can be good decisions. But when you're in the midst of other transitions, do you also want to take on that new piece? A friend of mine is choosing to get out of the rental home market because the government has put a moratorium on evictions. She said, so the government is telling me that someone doesn't have to pay rent to me and I still have to let them stay in my home and I still have to pay my mortgage. Right. The math is absolutely not adding up for her on that. It's a great time to sell your home. You're probably getting a great price, but if you chose to buy again, you'd be buying at those prices. So it might actually be a much better option for you to pay those capital gains taxes you're going to have to pay on your home. It might be a much better option for you to have to pay those capital gains taxes than buying a really expensive home when you don't need a home to live in. Okay. Exactly. As far as the capital gains taxes are concerned, the timing kind of depends. I'm not sure when your divorce was finalized versus when you sold your home, but an accountant should be able to tell you, you may very well be able to pay long-term capital gains tax rate instead of short-term capital gains tax rate. I don't know if you know what status you're in, but if you go through a major life change, death of a partner, divorce, marriage, etc., the government understands that changing homes kind of has to happen then, and they should not tax you at the higher short-term capital gains rate. So you may very well be entitled to long-term capital gains, which will reduce the tax you're going to pay on that home.
Okay.
Yep. No. And what you said, I loved so much about the money that you have spent and wasted on coaches when you're not in a place to process, and when you're trusting somebody's advice. Advice is great, but only if it applies to you. And I want to encourage everybody right now to do just even those 3 breaths. How does it feel inside? Solar plexus, heart, womb, inside my body. Does it feel good, warm, exciting, positive? Or does it feel dark, heavy, stressed, and icky? And then check in with your skin. Your skin is your boundary of the internal to the external. How does that decision feel in my skin? And then with that next series of breaths, the energy field around me, how does it feel? Does it feel elevating? Does it feel like angels singing around me? Or does it feel like I'm doing it wrong? I need to know more. Checking in those 3 places with every single decision really helps.
So Gina, if we can use you as a gentle example, I am betting that once you decided to sell your home and not buy a new one, it felt like a weight off your shoulders. And when that person questioned you, you mean you're not going to reinvest? It made you doubt yourself. But it didn't change how you felt about your decision. Do you see the difference there? That external input made you think things over again. But if you thought, no, I really do want to sell my home, then sure, reach out to another few people and reach out to the appropriate people. Oh, this friend told me I need to reinvest my home. Oh, I should ask a realtor friend what they think. Not my next door neighbor who's a self-proclaimed expert on all things real estate. Identify the source of where your information is coming from. So is that pretty accurate, that you loved your decision?
Oh, I love it. Although I will say I was running today and I thought this horrible thought came to me, like, what if Cal dies? That's my divine lover. And I'm like, that's a horrible thought. And like, that's not going to happen. But it's a conversation I need to have. We're not married. Like, what happens? Like,
Tina, that is brilliant, because that goes right into safety net. So what is the safety net that you might start thinking about? Is that going to happen? No, probably not. But when I went back to my favorite quote, life never goes as planned. Yeah. And how to have that safety net from a place of positively taking care of it instead of a place of fear. When I was practicing law, I did divorce for a hot second. But part of that is, are you going to have a prenup? And everybody says, I don't need a prenup. Yeah. Sometimes it's really good to talk about what if. And same thing with a will. It was hard for me to do a will and talk about, if we are both killed, where will my kids go? God, I don't even want to think about that. It's horrible. But you do get that peace of mind once you have created that safety net. As uncomfortable as it is in the moment, breathe and realize it's just a safety net. It's not a wish. It's not a premonition. It's not negative thinking. It's just your net.
And when we think about preparing for things, I'm glad you brought up the prenup. Kim maybe has opinions and feelings, capital O, capital F, on prenups. My second husband and I are very happily married, and we got a prenup because we thought of it as premarital financial counseling. We all know where all the cards are on the table. It has nothing to do with us preparing for getting divorced. No, it was simply a very practical way of getting on the same page about how we thought about finances. I know couples who have chosen, yes, we will do a prenup, and they have not gotten married because they apparently did not see eye to eye on finances. And so getting a prenup was a really good option for them. And so your partner may very well be a really important part of your safety net. And it might be a really good idea to sit down with a professional to say, where does he fit in my safety net? Where can other gaps be filled in other ways? And so just be very intentional. Everyone here wants to live an intentional life, right? We don't want to just arrive at the grave safely thinking, whoo, I made it here. Nothing terrible happened. Like, none of us want that. We want an intentional life. And so just being very intentional about where he fits into your safety net might help you kind of be more intentional about that piece, as well as, I cannot stress enough the importance of peace of mind. Planning for these things may be uncomfortable in the moment, but you never have to think about it again. Whereas if we put these things off and we think, oh, I'm in survival mode. Oh, I can't get out of fight, flight, or freeze mode. When we do that, then those things continue to hang over us. Whereas if we take a few uncomfortable steps now, those things are taken care of for a good long time, and we don't have to worry anymore. So did that answer your questions, plural, Gina?
Yeah, and it got me thinking about other things too. Yeah.
I hope good things, because again, taking care of them can be intimidating, but it's not you. You are the one making the decision. You are the one driving the train. You are not the one who is also, you're the pilot of the plane, but you have other people to help you be the navigator and help be the mechanic and help be the engineer and help be the flight attendant. You don't have to do all of those things. You are simply the pilot.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Brenda.
You brought up an interesting point, or something that we need to address, because we do own two small businesses, and the one I can totally run myself at this point, not a problem, not preferred, but I can do it. But the new business that my husband's creating, and he's the creative, if something is to happen to him, that can change a lot. And then, we have a lot to figure out with that. but also he has been facing some health issues. So, you know, you never know what's around the corner, right?
Yes.
But where would you go besides, I mean, obviously, when we create the business, we need to figure out those sensations or whatever, how things will go if one of us were no longer there. I'm only sales and marketing. I'll be very replaceable in that business. Whereas, you know, he will be the backbone of that business.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens, or just be prepared until, you know, his dream, of course, you know, he's in the 60s. His dream is he creates it, but let's put a CEO in place as soon as we can and not be completely responsible
Mm-hmm.
at this point, because would not be wise.
So what you're talking about is contingency planning. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens?
Mm-hmm.
And the space you're looking at right now is asset protection and income protection. And so an insurance product would be the most appropriate for that.
Okay.
And there's dozens of different kinds of things you can do. Disability insurance is probably going to be the best bet for what you should look into for him right there.
Okay.
And also just evaluate your safety net. How much do we need? How much do we have in terms of other kinds of savings? That kind of thing. So disability insurance doesn't have to be your only safety net.
Okay.
You can, you know, if the worst happens, if a contingency happens that needs to go into place, then just having a plan for which resources you'll use in which order. Like most of us, who here has a small emergency fund in their savings account? For most things, you're going to go through that first, right? So kind of having a contingency plan where you have an order of what resources you're going to marshal first for just, you know, 3 or 4 different scenarios. Or even if you just have a contingency for one scenario, that always gives you a really good starting point for if something similar were to happen. So, okay, I have a contingency. What happens if in my family, my grandmother got lung cancer in her late 50s, really young. It was really young. She also had a really severe stroke where she could no longer read, write, or speak. And so the contingency, so when I do my contingency planning, I'm like, what if I'm disabled? What if I can't work? That's my big contingency, my greatest fear. And so if I have a contingency plan, if I'm unable to work, then first I'm going to look into my emergency fund. And then second, I'm going to dip into my 401k because you can use that for certain medical expenses. And then third, I'm going to do this. That's kind of my main contingency plan where it all started. And so now if anything else happens, I can kind of riff off of that one. So you don't need 16 different contingency plans. Because the second you have your 16 different contingency plans, then an owl is going to fly through your window and attack you and mess you up because you can never predict. Like, talk to people in life. You can never predict things that go sideways. Like, you talk to some people and you're like, huh, truth is stranger than fiction. You can't make that up. Like, right? So you can never plan for all contingencies. And that's not what this is about. It's simply about giving you enough peace of mind to get you out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode and know that you are taken care of pretty much no matter what. Because even if you can't think of all the things that will happen, you can still be prepared. So does that help you thinking about contingency planning a little differently?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about that offline at some point.
Yeah.
And when you think about contingency planning too, when you were in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, you were out of the logical, linear thinking part of your brain, and you're in this vast subconscious. And the subconscious region of your mind is where everything scary and unknown and unpredictable is. And your mind is looking for things to hang on to. And you've probably heard, like, you know, don't go in after a drowning person because the drowning person claws you and it brings you both down. That's how your mind goes. Your mind will start thinking about all these scary things. And if you have a plan, if you have something written down that says dream big, I don't know if you can see it. When you have it written down, you can look at it and then your mind goes, oh, and it can relax. So if you have your contingency plan, you know, first bank savings account, whatever, Edward Jones IRA, life insurance. If you literally have it written out somewhere, when you find yourself panicking, it feels so good to be like, oh, I do have that, because we forget. And I cannot tell you how many times people forget what they have just because they're panicked and they're spun up, and then they do dumb things. So when you're calm, when you're done with the workshop tonight, write down some of your assets, or write down the order of operations. First, I will do this, then I will do this, then I will do this. And these are my people. My husband, one of his things when I always come to him panicked, he'll be like, have you talked to your mom? Well, no. Yeah, but she's always just really good at calming you down. Oh yeah, I'll call her. Or have you asked the universe? Well, no, I'm too agitated to ask the universe. Blah. But I know it's going to make me feel better because that's my way of doing it. Or sometimes he'll hand me, a little quote card or something and be like, read this and then we'll talk. And it does make you go, oh yeah, I've got this. So write it down, write it down, write it down.
Thank you so much for joining us, Gina. Tamara, we'll see you soon, Gina. Tamara, a safety plan to deal with an abusive parent. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that is wonderful. That's great. Just having a plan in place makes you feel like, oh, I have more resources than I thought. And again, I cannot reiterate the importance of asking for help. There are some very little did you knows. Identity theft, identity fraud is actually far more common than people think. Most banks have identity fraud and identity protection in place. Do you know what? I just realized this last year. My homeowner's insurance has $15,000 of identity theft protection. So if my identity got stolen, I could file a claim to State Farm. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked for help on something only partially related a couple of years ago. So when you put that out there, universe, I need help, resources do arrive. And again, not sitting on your couch in a little ball saying, universe, I think I need help. This is awful. The world is falling apart around me. But getting out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode and then saying, what can I do next? I am the pilot, but it's not just up to me. The resources are there. So educate yourself. And congratulations, Tamara. I'm sure that made a world of difference to that student, right? The way they were able to show up in class. Yeah,
huge.
So Laura and I knew this was going to get pretty emotional. Mm-hmm. And we knew that it was going to give people a lot to think about, and so we were planning on staying here till 5:30, just if everyone wanted to chat and get more ideas and that kind of thing. But I would like to take a moment. Laura has a special offer for you.
I do, but before I do that offer, I want to give you guys one more tool. Get your hands up here and shake. We are energetic beings. We're human, we're alive, and we get agitated. And if you think about agitation, it looks like this. And one of the worst things to do when you're agitated, now slowly start calming it down, is to try not to be agitated. And sometimes just doing something like that allows that energy to come up, and then you control it back down. And sometimes you might be here for a while. And I did the hands because we're sitting and I like that, but you can do your shoulders. A shimmy is a healing motion. You can do your hips, your knees. Just bring that agitation up and out so you don't burst. So blow that away.
Letting off that release valve. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a couple of different offers that I just want to invite you. I teach every Friday at this time, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, burlesque and bubbly. And bodies need to move. Dance is a uniquely human emotion. Animals don't have a sense of rhythm. Animals don't dance. Humans do. And we need to, especially when we're in a state of transition or trauma or joy. Every culture in the entire world dances. War dance, marriage dance, celebrate dance. When we're in transition, we're just like, I have to figure this out. I have to sit here. So every Friday, you can come join me and dance. It's 4 to 5. You don't have to be a good dancer. There's no such thing as a good dancer. If you're a human, you're a good dancer, and it's on Zoom. You can turn your camera off, but I encourage you not to. Classes are $10 a week, and your first class is free as a thank you for being here today. And then my second offer is, if you do want to go deeper with me, absolutely give me a call. I would love to sit down and spend an hour with you and talk to you about my Life Choreography 5-month program, which is just a support of you for 5 months, and just to talk and see what we maybe could do together or what you might need in the future. So reach out to me. My name's on the little Zoom screen. It's just Lora@loracheadle.com. Let's sit down for an hour. I can tell you about the way I work. I'm very big into all of these different tools, as you can tell. And I would love and be honored to support you through your transition now or in the future. And I know, Melissa, you've got some things too.
Yes, at 5 Rings Financial, the biggest thing we focus on is education, educating yourself and knowing what your options are. Sometimes we might think this is my only option. And as far as how money works, there are a lot of options available to you. And in that spirit, our flagship product is a free online class called Money 101, where you learn how money works. So if that is something you're interested in, just understanding more of how your finances can work for you in the future, where you can build that future and that path that you're really wanting, then please reach out to me or put it in the chat that you are interested in learning more about Money 101.
And I'm putting my stuff in the chat too.
I'm going to put my contact information in the chat as well. Thank you all for being here. Does anyone have any more questions, or this is definitely making you think about things, right? So what came up for you, Kim?
I actually have a question, and it's sort of for a client of mine, but it might be relevant for other people to think about too. So I thought I'd actually raise it sort of to you, Melissa, but also in this group setting, and then I might send you a client. My client is in a situation where she actually is probably a year or two away from being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. She's only 40, 41. So it's devastating. And she's going through a divorce. And so to add transition to transition, she is terrified. The poor thing, like she's worried about living a life alone and not having anyone else to take care of her or help her. And how can she make sure that she's financially secure and able to support herself going forward? She doesn't make a ton of money, but has a job. And I'm already suggesting lots of things for her in terms of finding a job with a really great benefits plan and, and just some creative solutions. But I was curious, with that sort of situation where you sort of know you're going to be having this degenerative condition. Sometimes it's multiple sclerosis, like there are different things that are sort of like that in people's lives that come up. And I'm curious if you have any recommendations financially, an insurance, arm, or anything like that you would suggest for somebody who's going to be in that situation and sort of approaching that transition, even though it's a little bit intangible as to when it might really kick in.
So many thoughts, and I would love to speak to this person directly. There are programs that may be appropriate for her. Unfortunately, the insurance side of things is a matter of you need to reduce your risk when you have the least of it. So very sadly, for some people that we want to work with, they have thought about these things. Oh, it's a good idea. I'm too busy right now. I'm in too much transition or upheaval, or I'm fine right now. I don't see anything happening. And then they wait too long. And sometimes too late is too late for the perfect plan. But there is always something that is possible to put into place and do. So yeah, I would love to speak more with that person. And there are so many details that really matter in that kind of situation. And I think what I would recommend for everyone in this room is make sure you are protected and have a plan in place before you need it. And for the love of God, make sure your family members and cherished friends are protected and have a plan in place as well. Because as we know, my grandmother going through this awful stroke and cancer, my grandfather having to be there for her, too late was too late. He almost lost his home. They went through all of their retirement savings. He spent everything to take care of her, and it was well worth it. When she was diagnosed with cancer, she was given 3 to 6 months to live. She made it 5 years. We had 5 years with her. But they did as best as they could. They just, certain things didn't occur to them, that it didn't occur to them that this might ever happen to them. So yes, have a plan in place before you need it. That's where the peace of mind comes in. So.
Yeah. And Kim, since you're pregnant,
Yeah.
my kids are 21 and 23. You know, oldest just graduated. He'll head to grad school in a year. Youngest is going straight through the grad school. Somebody had told me early on, just, you know, randomly, oh, do the college invest thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, later. And they're like, no, do it now. Both of their schools have been completely, between scholarships and their college invest accounts, they've been covered.
Yeah.
And it's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that knowing about it, planning it in advance, and just doing it.
I was actually chatting a little bit with Melissa about that last week. I think it was last week. But yeah, just about 529 plans versus other options that are a little more flexible, and just trying to assess what's out there and what the pros and cons are. But I definitely have it on my radar. It's on my to-do list of adulting items this year.
It's one of those things that's very important, but not nearly as urgent as, you know,
right,
figuring out how many diapers you're going to need in the first few months.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is more than you think. So yes, when things are important and urgent, we take care of them. But when they're important but not urgent, we still need to find a motivation for ourselves to really respond those things. So.
And along those lines, we did the same thing. I'm always a planner and so forth. So basically, not since birth, but not too far out, you know, started the 529 work, made sense for us at the time. But also my parents, I mean, I thought it was really sweet. I mean, they would buy gifts for my son, but especially these days, if they still have lots of living grandparents and aunts and uncles and stuff, kids only need so many toys and stuff. So my parents bought, they're big into savings bonds, and there's educational savings bonds. And so they contributed to his education that way. So
Nice.
So that's something,
Great to know.
Yeah, that team of people around you can also help contribute early on to that child's education. So
I love that. And that kind of goes into what Melissa was saying earlier, sometimes about asking. Because I know sometimes I have the hardest time figuring out what to give somebody as a gift. And it's like, I just don't want to go buy something stupid that, you know, is going to end up in a Goodwill bag 2 months later. So sometimes just saying, hey, I'd love a financial donation. I love that, like with the honeymoon registries. There's a lot of great things out there, even.
Yeah. What do you think, Tamara? What landed well for you? I'm looking at the chat, and it sounds like you and Lora connect on like different levels, which is awesome.
So I am intentionally a sans child, but in that sandwich generation, and actually came out here to do a doctoral program, which I thought was going to be that was my idea of a retirement plan. And so leaving all but dissertation with $200,000 of debt, and then meeting my spouse in graduate school with his own debt, and then we live in Boulder. So like in a lot of ways, we took the rule book and we're like, let's just do this all backwards. Let's just do everything wrong. So now just looking at what's next, and I love the idea of taking the things that I do to support students that I'm already good at, because I can't be adding on new capacities. I got to work with the messed up stuff I got, which is why I love the burlesque and the somatics. I got to be weird. I got to have my colors. I got to be abroad. I got to do it this way. But really hearing what people are working with and using that to think about what are the major plot points on my journey. So this has been super helpful for just helping me get that big picture of what needs to be attended to. So I appreciate that. And a real like empowered, like, you got this. This is different, but it's not new.
Yeah.
We've all been through transitions, so we can use that.
Yep. I like the word transition or setback. We've all been through setbacks. No one's path through life looks like this. There are U-turns, there are mountain roads. Like, I think all of us can appreciate that analogy. And yeah, I mean, sometimes we have downright setbacks, not just curves in the road, and you can recover from those. I think traditional financial advice, and I really love working in spaces that are female or very inclusive, gender inclusive, because we don't always get the best treatment from male financial advisors. And little background about me, my dad has been a financial advisor for 25 years. And so when I told him I was thinking of going into the finance industry, it was great. He's given me some really wonderful advice and also a very clear look at the industry. And you know what? This industry is still stuck in the 1950s. It is still stuck in the idea that men are the one making financial decisions, that this knowledge is secret and hard to understand. It's not. He is a wonderful man. He loves his clients, very ethical, but he's still stuck in this mindset that I need to tell people what to do with their money because they don't know. And I absolutely reject that. You know, Tamara, I haven't met you, but it's wonderful to get to know you here. And I do know Brenda, Kim, and Laura a little better. It doesn't matter how well I know you. I don't know what's best for you. So I cannot take decision-making power away from you. And I can't even give you advice if you don't have some understanding and knowledge of your options. So yeah, the financial industry as a whole, it's something I could just keep talking about, and I won't, because I find it interesting. Not everyone here does. But yeah, Tamara, like, no one has a straight life path, and you can't just end up, you can't think it's hopeless. I think one thing I have found is that most people are doing better than they think they are. Trivia question. At what age do most people start seriously saving for retirement? You save a little bit when you can, but when you seriously start thinking about retirement, what age? 40? Try 55. If you start putting more than 2 or 3% of your income into retirement before 55, you are ahead of the curve. I love telling people that. I love that. It's great. Like,
love it.
When I asked that question, everyone's energy kind of went, contracted a little bit. And when I answered that question, everyone's like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I've always been an old soul. I think I started with my first job in my 20s, but it was my dream to retire by 45. So,
Perfect.
which I kind of did.
Nice.
Now I'm just back to work, kind of by choice.
But still, you have that savings, and so you don't have that urgency. And so, and again, like Brenda, you're a really good example of the fact that no two people are the same. Like, your path in life is different than mine and Kim's and Tamara's and Laura's and all the other 7.5 billion people on the planet. So why do we have these mental rules about how things should be?
Yeah. And Brenda, what I love about that, when I work with people, and my book goes through the same trajectory, you start with your vision, then you recognize and release a whole bunch of ideas internally and externally. Then you start revealing things about your heart, yourself, your soul. Then it's time to re-choreograph, because all of a sudden you realize that vision that you started out with, once you've recognized, released, and revealed, it's not the same vision that you had in the first place. So then you have to circle all the way back around and re-choreograph that same vision. And that's something that people think is wrong. You know, sometimes they'll be like, my vision was wrong. No, it wasn't. You've got to have a starting place and you've got to start spiraling around. And then you'll realize, oh, this is where I need to be. And then you're going to do that again. And then you're always moving around it and changing it. And that's what's right. It's right to change your mind.
Yeah.
Because you're always refining. Know better, do
Right.
better, refine.
I love that. A long time ago, I kind of came up with the idea with, we get led by a dream. You have this dream, this idea of what you think would be wonderful. And when you start moving towards that, then you might discover that, okay, that's not what was quite so wonderful for me, but this over here is. And trying to help our daughter understand that at a younger age than I did, right?
Yes.
Has been, the challenge, because I'm like, dream big, so she left for school wanting to be a doctor and came home a theater major, and we're like, what? And then she dropped out because she didn't know what she really wanted to do. And she thought, why keep spending your money if I don't know what I want to do? And now she's back, she's doing it, paying it all herself. And she's a history major.
Perfect.
She loves it.
She loves it. She's happy. And I'm like, good, you're happy.
Yeah.
You're happy, we're happy.
Yeah.
Recalibrating and also kind of taking into account those things that happen that are unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
You go to grad school and then you meet the love of your life and you're like, oh, where does that fit in?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, I'm glad you're here. This is wonderful. And, I love this, but I wasn't planning on it.
This changes everything.
Or a baby.
Yeah.
Definitely changes everything.
Yep.
Grace.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, just having that grace to tell yourself that, it's okay that the plan changed. And just because, and Kim, this isn't about you, but I chose to have a baby and I chose to leave my career. I chose to redirect my career, or I chose to take a few years off. Like, women make some really difficult decisions around motherhood. I too, Tamara, I've got a stepson, but I am child-free myself. And so I haven't been with him since birth. And women are kind of forced to make some really hard decisions about motherhood, and we're judged so hard for it. And none of the decisions are wrong.
No.
So.
Are we really judged so hard for it, or do we judge ourselves so hard for it?
Have you seen?
Oh no, they help.
They help. Yeah.
They help.
We both.
There's a lot of help.
Whoa. Lots of okay. I just know I'm good at judging myself totally anyway, but I chose when I became a bonus mom and ended up having all 3 kids. We thought we were going to have the youngest every other week when we got married, and then we ended up with all 3 of his kids full time within about 6 or 9 months after we got married. Yeah, there was some big changes and transitions there, that's for certain. But I don't regret spending that time with them.
Yeah.
Big transition for sure. Very unexpected.
Yes.
Well, and sometimes your transition doesn't match up with what other people are comfortable with. And so, for me, choosing not to have children disrupted some big stories in my family, and it wasn't. And so they helped me to understand that I was making a serious choice. There was a lot of feedback. And,
there's always feedback.
And not only
Families.
feedback, but just like withholding resources and trying to leverage what they perceived as resources to kind of influence and sway the decision. And so I think that you're so right, Melissa. Every choice we make is the right one, especially if it's right in the moment. And we also have the capacity to make the decision right. We may have chosen to have children, and then that child is diagnosed with Down syndrome, and then okay, now we're going to roll with that. And so I think that this is what I do for a living. I try and support, especially women who want to be students and like choose the academic life for themselves. There's a lot of folks who don't, that's not in the family plan. That's not in the generational plan. That's not super helpful for where the resources are supposed to go. I've got a lot of students who are taking away their lead translator for their family, their lead, like, active participants between the state and so, and then they don't get this other information about how to make a contingency plan. And when they go back to their communities after stumbling, they don't always get the support because they're seen as traitors. You shouldn't have left anyway. And so I really appreciate, Lora, you and Melissa sharing this knowledge freely. I can honestly say there are not a lot of Black women, there are not a lot of Latinx women, there are not a lot of queer femmes who get access to this kind of space to hear the kind of information and tools that you are all sharing. So I really appreciate this. And I will be taking bits of this back to the folks that I work with. Good.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk to you more about kind of what we offer in terms of free financial education. The founding principle of Five Rings is providing a sound financial education to all Middle Americans. Like, that's in their mission statement, and it's true. Like, we're not all about chasing. I feel safe in saying this in this population right here. We're not all chasing the old white men who already have money. The rest of us want to retire too. And I think it's something, I don't remember the year, but I think by 2030 or I think it's 2050, women will have more wealth than men in this country. And you know what? We make less than we make less than they do, and we are still going to own more money, and we still are kind of and like, we're starting out tomorrow, like you said, we're kind of starting out behind the starting line than most people because we don't have access to these resources. And we're still going to be having more than 50% of the wealth in this country will be held by women. So yeah, I would love to talk to you about the financial education and the workshops that I do that might help benefit the people you know.
Thanks, I'll be in touch for sure.
That is an exciting statistic, Melissa. Where did you get that? I know you research everything, but you are thinking hard. Look at that.
I do research everything. I believe it's a Pew Research study on how the trend of how women are overtaking men in terms of wealth. I believe it's a Pew Research study that posited that by 2050 it was in one of their reports.
Does that have anything to do with this 20-something generation of young men that are all about playing their video games?
We have found it necessary to impress upon our 14-year-old that men graduate from college less often than women nowadays.
Wow.
They don't graduate. They go to college more often, but they are far more likely than women to drop out. And that impacts their wealth because they're earning high school wages with college loans to pay back. And so it might be part of the workforce. It's also probably due to other social factors. In 2008, men lost more jobs than women did because employers were like, oh, we can lay off this high paid man and still keep most of the workforce in our women. 2020 is different. Most of the people who are hit worst in the jobs are disproportionately women and disproportionately people of color, and that has to do with the different industries that are being affected. So that number, now that you're saying that, that number might be affected by the 2020 pandemic economic crisis, but I still think it's an exciting statistic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I went off into the weeds there. Oh,
that's all good. And I have a quote that I wanted to close the workshop with, but I want to make sure all of your questions are answered and that I don't just like launch into it and then it's feel like, well, no, we needed to talk. Are you good to close it out or do you need more time? Okay, perfect. This is from the book I wrote, of course, but it's so applicable to what we've been talking about. As women, We've been conditioned to measure ourselves against external standards, always trying harder and doing more. But in order to thrive, we cannot keep doing more, living up to standards that are not our own. Instead, we need to develop our own internal valuation system where we meet our own expectations instead of the expectations of others. And when we do, confidence and joy flourish, and we are enlivened both professionally and personally, because all facets of our identity align with who we are and how we show up in the world. Of course, difficult things happen. Life is filled with transitions, challenges, and setbacks. But in choreographing our own life and committing to our own path, we develop a knowingness of who we are, what we value, and what is important to us, which brings an inner peace that no amount of accolades from others can ever provide. So it's all about that inner peace. It's all about knowing what you want, asking those people for help, figuring it out, staying out of fight, flight, or freeze, and just taking that next most logical step for you. And thank you all so much for being here.
Very cool. Thank you, Laura, for sharing that. Very good quote.
That was a wonderful way to wrap this up. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
And thank you guys for being here.
Yes.
Thanks to both of you.
Thanks for having me.
Contact information. I'm sure we'll be reaching out to see if we can kind of help continue this conversation with you all.
Have an amazing weekend.
Fantastic.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Happy Friday.
Congratulations on your
Happy Friday.
arrival.
Pardon?
What was that?
I said, Kim, congratulations on your soon-to-be new arrival.
Thank you.
And
Really
Brenda,
appreciate that.
Good luck with the puppy acquisition.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I don't know how excited my old dog is, but you know, he'll have a buddy to play with, right?
Everything will be fine. It'll all be fine. It'll all be fine. Isn't that one of the... Thanks, y'all. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good to see you, Brenda.